Good afternoon, industry professionals. We are running PharmaLytica Podcast Series. PharmaLytica Podcast Series is basically which brings you a lively up-close discussions from key pharma industry minds on the thoughts and ideas shaping the industry future, to get first-hand insights from the latest product innovation in the industry and the most relevant current discussion and disruptions driving the industry. So we have with us Mr. Nagendrakumar Maroor, who is the Managing Director India and Subcontinents at IKA India Private Limited. And without much further ado, I'm going to quickly kickstart the PharmaLytica Podcast Series. So Mr. Nagendrakumar, welcome. And thank you for your time to be available for this podcast series. My first question to you is, first of all, definitely we know who you are and your company, what your company does. But for our viewers, I would like you to spell out, introduce yourself and your organization. Over to you, sir.
So thank you very much, Jayesh. It's an opportunity for me to be part of your podcast series. So let me put in myself as who I am. Many of the customers already are aware about it, and the industry people probably not many, but I think many to a many. I don't know what you say for this, but then still, yeah, people are aware about it. I've been in this industry for last, especially for the pharma and the analytical market. When you talk about almost like around 24 years now, and in the past I was also addressing the operation theater and diagnostics market to begin with. So it's a lot of in terms of started as a service engineer on the field, holding heavy weights, to what I am today. That fetches in a lot of experience to have an understanding what industry is obviously looking forward to. So it's an instrumentation background what I have in engineering. That's where I have started moving on. So that's about me, and I'm glad that this interview of mine is happening when I'm working for an organization like IKA, with a very brilliant history of around 111 years. That's pretty long years back this industry actually started. It's also seen the pandemics of years, which we know that about 120, I think, which happened. But then it was also seen two world wars. The entire facility of them got devastated in the Second World War. So they had to move from a place which is called as Cologne. From Cologne, they moved to where are currently situated in Staufen, south of Germany, next to Stuttgart. So that's where the organization is based out. They have, in fact, I'm very optimistic in terms of innovations and products that's coming out to IKA, because it's been actually awarded with a lot of innovation designs. Like the Red Dot Award, as recent as in 2018 during IKA, with a lot of new products. We had more than 60 innovations for 2018 in IKA. Wow. Unfortunately, we were supposed to have more this year, which got postponed now. I think we'll all be seeing the IKA happen only next year. So that's a great organization, what IKA is all about. And the investors actually dream about their passion and living for science. That's very important for me to really emphasize on this point, because he dreams about the new products, and the stretch of R&D team is there to really bring it into reality, supported by the global IKA centers or the subsidiaries which are available. We also have a pretty big R&D center in Bengaluru to support the R&D activities back in Germany. So yeah, in India we are for the last 11 years as direct subsidiary organization. We have got MSME, which now has changed after the pandemic, where the scale of MSMEs have been redefined. So we fall under the small scale sector of MSME. Earlier we were in medium, so we fall under the small scale sector of MSME. We do produce a lot of products in India, source lot of products in India, or
Mm-hmm.
raw materials in India, rather not the products, the raw materials for assembling in India. We were exporting for our third-party labels for some products globally, but we continue now to support our parent company by assembling a lot of products for global requirements too. So that's something about IKA and something about we work in it.
Thanks, fantastic. I mean, that was quite elaborate about you and your organization. Uh, Quick one. I think this would be the golden question of 2020. I mean, everybody's asking how was your business. So, I mean, same lame question I'm going to throw at you. That how was the business in 2020 throughout this pandemic?
So, on what perspective you would see is very important. So, if you are looking at from Indian financial year, which starts from April until 2021 March, then I would find it a little tough to answer. But I would, if you want me to answer from the calendar year, I think that would be easier
Yeah,
for
I
me
think
to
calendar year
answer.
would make sense that, every business was hit badly, but we really do not want to hear the story of how badly your business was hit. But yeah, I mean, overall, in few words, if you want to sum up year 2020 as such for the business, how would you do that?
Uh, See, if you look at from uh, using every difficulty into an opportunity. Uh, I would always, and I would give a caption to always to my team members that don't leave no stone unturned, right? And this is because if you think about pandemic and if you don't want to work because you can't travel, you're in your home, and your home is your office and you have to work through, but that's not the case in terms of the production, and that cannot be the case in terms of the sales or service. I'm glad that the industry actually responded pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that it was a shock, no doubt about it, because the lockdown came all of a sudden, and I'm sure that there is a specific reason for the government to take such decisions. And I'm sure that one of the great reason was to improve the infrastructure, and that's where the government would stand for. But when it comes to the business, if you would look at from the calendar year, we did a good business. In fact, we grew on our process business year on year, especially the large equipment. We have grown year on year. We have grown on certain equipment year on year from the lab and analytical equipment side. But if you look at overall from the lab perspective, we declined since 2019.
Mm-hmm.
But we did a decent business. I would not say that it was sort of really catastrophic to the business. It is not so. We did a decent business, and I'm very happy to also say that we were able to even announce the festival bonus for the year 2020.
Wow, that that was something. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think not only the festival bonus. In fact, the owners decided that they would give two times grants for the families, and we released a certain amount of money to make sure that they buy out monthly groceries, in
Mm-hmm.
spite of not cutting their salaries. Of course, we didn't go for any increment though, but then we made sure that we gave twice in the year of 2020, the requirements of groceries to the families. In fact, we sent the courier from Bangalore as a surprise gift just before Christmas, so that they'll have a wonderful Christmas.
Interesting. I think that was quite humanly behavior and kind of empathetic in nature your company has been for towards your employees, and it was great to hear. This is more on a personal level. How did you cope up with the pandemic? I mean, was there any particular strategy or initiatives that you took at a personal level to kind of uh, to tackle this entire year 2020 as such, because most of us were working from home. Factories or the big workshops were not really working where the large scale manpower could come, etc. So on an individual level, how was it for you?
Oh, okay. So, see, the lockdown was announced somewhere by 18th of March,
March,
if
yes.
I'm and it was completely forbidden for anybody to travel from 22nd of March. So that's how it was like, and we were all like dumb stuck, what to do and how to go about. So we were trying to look at options to see how exactly we can begin our operations. Uh, Minuscule, but not to the entire extent. And I'm glad that government of Karnataka brought out a policy where one could apply online to BBMP. Commissioner would investigate, and we would get daily passes for a period of a week, and then they extended to 15 days. This facility was provided by government of Karnataka. So I personally applied. It's an online application. So applied online, justifying that we have to support the customers who are into the diagnostic and the research business, and especially companies like the vaccine manufacturers and the many hospitals, super specialty hospitals who have to get into the diagnostics. So, whenever you want to do a PCR test, you will have to do some preparation of these samples. So we had those orders like microcentrifuge, it could be the thermal shakers.
Yeah.
So we had these orders in place, and we were supposed to deliver them. The challenge was that how do we deliver, because we are not able to manufacture. So luckily we made an application. 15% of our staff was allowed, which later increased to 25% of the staff by the Government of Karnataka. We had valid passes available. We also applied passes for our transport services, only maintaining this physical distance, which was very important. So driver and two passengers in the car, so they were allowed to drive into office, do their work. And the next challenge was for us in terms of sending back this equipment after manufacturing. That was a bigger challenge. So we requested the customers. Customers did have those passes for their trucks, so they sent their trucks to collect the equipment, finished goods from the office, and then take it to their facility. So being a manufacturing industry, it's very difficult if you actually say work from home. You have to be practically present on floor. Shop floor is very important. I'm very grateful to my staff and their family. In fact, they were ready to send people to office, and God's grace, none of us got infected during this period. We gave all the facilities required, including the immunity boosters to our staff, cleaning place. We didn't even allow people walking into office to wear their slippers, because we were feared at that point of time that the virus would get stuck to the shoes that they wear and then they walk in. So we had a changeover room, so they were supposed to leave everything outside, get themselves with the spray, sanitize, and get into the premises. But touch wood, God willing, everything went fine. I mean, it's a positive thing that we need to look into. So all of the departments like for R&D, we help them to carry their laptops and the desktop to their residence. We arranged a facility for them to work from their home so that they will have their regular interactions. We enabled the data handling at their residence so that they'll have huge amounts of data to be transferred without hanging of the internet. Rest of all the departments started operating from home. So that was a new culture altogether for us to really operate from home. But then, as I said again, that the staff made it really possible. Without that, we wouldn't have really come out of this pandemic. Sales started doing their business. So they started doing a lot of their interaction or demonstration through internet. They used to call group customers to demonstrate. We increased our webinar. In fact, to say, if you want to conduct a seminar, probably you would have spent more in terms of the venue, inviting your customers, coffee, tea, those sort of expenses. But then on a webinar, I'm glad that your attendance increased. Normally, seminar you will have around 30 plus or 40 plus, so that's a maximum. But in the webinars, the attendance increased to threefold. It was almost like 120, 150 people attending the webinar. So we had to increase the capacity of our WebEx. We had only 100 people attendance, that we increased to 1,000 people. So these are all the adaptations that we had to do. But then I think it was a due course of learning. It went through a great deal.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the adaptations that your organization, took over and the results are seen. As you said, I mean, webinars is again something which is very common even for our industry. I think it has worked like a magic for majority of our clients. Even throughout the pandemic, as an exhibition organizer, we also did a lot of webinars for our clients, and they were super successful because everybody was like from the work from the comfort of their home. With just few clicks, they could be online, and they were able to kind of be it in India or whether overseas. They could just log in and be a part of the product demos or product presentation, etc. So glad to know that. Next question is, entire world was disrupted by the pandemic. Lab and process segment needed to support the pharmaceutical industry, which you have already just in the introduction itself you clarified that we were to support the mainline industry with the equipment that were needed for the PCR test and likewise for other requirements. So do you see, do you foresee the boost in the requirement for this activity for the process and lab instruments in the future also?
Personally, I would definitely see that. And from the industry standpoint, yes. It's to actually talk about is not being opportunistic, but it's a stage of development. People have realized that you have to be very clear in terms of survival and surviving healthy. It's not about do anything on war footing, but have preparedness to move forward to. So I was talking to one of my clients who happened to say that there are more than 3,000 viruses, and everything becomes active. Imagine how many shots that an individual can take. Can he go with 3,000 vaccination shots, or there needs to be an immunity booster for the well-being of the human being? Not to be selfish, it's not that only human beings should survive. You have a lot of other things to also be part of it. So you need to be very environmental friendly to move forward. So I would say that not don't be opportunistic, but look at from the stage development standpoint to see how exactly you can be progressive there. But for this, normally the pharmaceutical companies would be dependent on heavy investments, and they spend a lot of on R&D infrastructure. They would also expect a return on revenue, right? So return on investment is very important for them, so they would have to generate these revenue requirements. But moving forward, you will have a lot of this generic drugs that are available. So it actually dies down after the patent period. You will have a lot of these drugs really coming out. So, in my opinion, uh, government will have to really play a major role here. Like if you actually compare from the R&D investment in the neighboring countries of Asia,
Mm-hmm.
you could see something which is drastically much bigger. I would say it's almost sevenfold bigger than the business that what we actually talk about in India, right? Uh, and the country is not sevenfold bigger. It may be around 4.5 times bigger, but then you have a lot of wasteland also which is not there, right? So if you compare that, it's a lot sort of confidence building and investment that needs to happen, because a lot of multinational companies do come and invest in India, but companies of Indian origin, how many are there investing in R&D? Not many people are moving into the generic drugs. I think with the government nod towards investment into health industry, I think there is a lot of opportunities for Indian multinationals to really come up, a lot of startup companies to really happen. Moving forward, I think there's a lot of scope. I think India would definitely stand out in addressing the global requirements. And I emphasize that it's more to do with standard developments rather than opportunistic development. I think the world is going to move in that direction in the future.
All right. The next one is from lab to process. What innovations do you expect in near future? Or perhaps you can talk about the innovations at IKA India Private Limited that you have undergone and have produced in the market.
So, IKA has been actually investing in terms of the lab and process simultaneously. For instance, if you talk about our simple tube homogenization system, we have got the pilot homogenization system, as well as we have got big process homogenization system. So, anything that IKA has defined and designed has an extension on the process side. We with understanding with the Scripps laboratory, we developed a product called as electrosil, which is called as a synthetic chemistry requirements. So that's basically a batch process which we do in the lab. It's an innovative product which is patented, in fact, to say, which scales down the usage in terms of bigger power supply requirements for synthetic chemistry, but that's been actually sized down to just a tabletop. It's not even as big as a laptop, to say. It's as big as a magnetic stirrer. It gives you all the requirements in terms of different electrodes combination, power supplies, separation that will happen in electrochemistry. And this product, we also have electrolysis flow, which would take up to the next level where people have got the research successful, and then they move to in terms of the process requirements. So anything that also looks into in terms of the process. As I said, when you actually talk about the requirements, it's sometime back when this government was formed, there was a comment of lot of paper publications that has happened from various organizations or institutions, I would precisely say.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a big, debate that went on the TV with the Ministry for HRD. And the question was that how many papers have actually been reported as practical requirement to the human being or the society, I would rather say that. And there was a complete understanding of that, because whatever you bring it on the paper, unless you practically bring it out to a requirement and application, it doesn't make sense. You would get rewarded or awarded for your paper presentation, but what next? So that's not the philosophy with IKA, and that should be also necessarily be followed also with a lot of institutions and industrial tie-up, I would say. That would really benefit. So from lab to process, there needs to be a very clear tie-up, and it should be industry and institution tie-up too, because that's where you're going to see a scope of this moving in from the institution to the lab, to the industry, to the society. So I would say that, and that's very important for us to move forward. Yeah.
Cool, glad to know that. As far as business is concerned, I mean, how do you foresee business in the new normal? You mentioned that R&D is a big opportunity. Indian companies must invest in there with and take grant of government policies, etc. Also, but are you as a company, IKA India, are you also looking at strengthening your R&D facilities and also make use of this opportunity and kind of also grow as far as your business is concerned, as far as facilities are concerned, etc. So what is the new normal business scenario that you look forward
to? You know what? New normal has sort of become a synonymous representation by everybody.
I know.
I would term it as adaptability.
Okay.
Things are evolving. Okay, you have to evolve and move on. I would say that you perform or perish. That's the most common word that anybody would understand. You have to perform to stay alive, or you perish. Right?
Yeah.
I keep on saying that not to be really opportunistic in terms of such pandemics to happen for you to have these sort of investments to go on. But this would also open up a bundle of nerves in understanding and giving out new ideas. But at the same time, I would say IKA India has been standing in terms of requirements, where we have done a couple of institutional seminars. Myself, I went and addressed engineering colleges and MBA students about adaptation, innovation, and how they have to go on. We also had master's students working with our R&D centers under internship for 6 to 8 months. So they come work in a facility to the R&D setup and the support. Of course, this is under the clearances that comes from Germany. We need to get this clearance because of the nature of work in R&D will be completely on non-disclosure agreement, so that is required. So that is how it moves, and I would definitely encourage, this is very much required, that the institutional and industry tie-up need to happen. Otherwise, what we have done in the past will continue to our future generation. You have not many engineers available today, but those engineers getting a job is very important. And how do they get the job? It's because they have to have an understanding of the industry. They need to have an understanding of adaptation. They need to have an adaptation. They have to have an understanding of implementation. If these things are not there and they become bookworms and they get a CGPA of 8+ or 9+ grants, what's the use? Now the certificates do matter, but today if you actually see, the world has evolved. Not necessarily you need to have certificates, you need to have a performance in the background and a willpower to move forward. That's what I would say. So, for your question, I think that would be a relevant answer. That or you were expecting something more, you can let me
No,
know.
no, 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 no. Absolutely, new normal means as good as adaptation, and that's the right word fitting it there. And one last question that we have: do you miss in-person meetings? I mean, the face-to-face meetings that you used to have in the past. Maybe, I mean, they must have started for you, but did you miss them during the pandemic where you were not able to?
On the lighter note, in fact, I'm a foodie, right? So I miss a lot of those things. When you meet your clients, you have a lot of different varieties of food that's available there in that part of the state or the city. But having said that, on the serious note, yes, it matters because the customers of ours uh, are, I would say, they are very focused in the sense they don't want to experiment on the newer things. If you ask a customer on a flow technique that he is doing in some sort of filtration device, he would not change that because he fears on his cleaning place and steriling place. So he would want to use the same sort of an requirement. If you talk about a customer who's working IKA homogenizer, he would not want to change that for obvious reasons because he has seen those results over a period of time. The shelf life is better for whatever they have homogenized with IKA homogenizer, so they don't want to change. So it needs to get demonstrated. You need to stay there. You need to take customer into confidence. You need to have a lot of points of discussion on the positive note as to why he or she needs to consider the change in design, change in technology to
Yeah.
move forward. So, having said that, this personal meetings do matter a lot at that point of time because that would look at your body language and then speak up capabilities, touch and feel of the equipment because when you give the demonstration, you have a touch and feel of the equipment. That's completely lost if you don't actually have the physical presence there. But as I said, that we all know that it's evolving. Moving forward, you will have augmented reality and artificial
Yeah.
intelligence. And I'm not sure that if you guys are aware that IKA Sisters concern is already started in India. We have got a big R&D called as Real World One Studio.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it started around 4 years back when I under me in India, and later on it was made up as a separate company. We do a lot of this augmented reality and artificial intelligence work already there.
Wow.
So, example, if I and you are talking, we can actually be in on a table boardroom where we would see each other and we speaking, not necessarily, but in terms of aura, the aura would be there talking to each other. We can dismantle the entire equipment or give you a complete six-dimensional we can assemble, disassemble, give you a result on the flow and everything. So that's already there. So I think the future is going to be that. You can't keep expecting that this physical presence needs to be there. But human touch will not die. That will have to continue. That's where the culture would actually take you a long way. But I think changes are required, and changes cannot be stopped.
And change is constant also. So glad to hear that coming from you as a customer, as one of the big clients in the pharma community. I think so glad to hear that touch and feel is something which is really important. Face to face human interaction is really really crucial for the success of the business. Of course, over a period of time things will change, but the human interaction face to face is there to stay, and that also kind of reinforces why exhibitions are also important, and that is where we come into a picture. And really thank you for saying that. I think many of us in the industry echo that sentiment that you have just said. I think with this, we'll wrap up this podcast series, and I really want to take this opportunity to thank you for spending this time with us and giving us valuable feedback on the questions that we had, the questions that we posed to you. And yeah, thank you so much, and have a lovely day ahead. Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. Thank you for your time. I hope I have satisfied with you on the answers that's required.
Absolutely.
I mean, to say, black as black is what we need to do it. I think we look forward for the entire industry to evolve. Look forward for better life for all together tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Have a good day.